Alright, welcome to the first episode of Comic Ketchup. I just wanted a way to talk about comics more casually as I get more into them, and not really have to worry about the structure, the flow of the script and whatnot, because I read a good amount of stuff, and I'm for sure not about to make a separate video for everything I'm reading. So for CC, Comic Ketchup, I'm just gonna go through everything that I'm currently reading and just talk about it. I'll still make dedicated videos for comics that I really enjoy, like Ultimate Spider-Man 2024, and something like Batman and Superman World's Finest, which is on the list for this episode, but I want to make a whole video about it because, well, we'll get into it. First up, we got Ultimate Spider-Man 2003. Alright, I'm gonna keep my thoughts on this brief because I started writing about it and I ended up at 8 pages and I still wasn't done. So yeah, that's gonna be its own separate video. But we got Brian Michael Bendis on the writing and Mark Bagley on the art. This book is just a fun time, man. Seeing young Peter bumbling around trying to navigate high school life and being Spider-Man. I just love the high school drama of it all and Peter's supporting cast. Gwen having a brother-sister dynamic with Peter is not something I expected, but it's been really fun. His melodramatic high school love story with MJ is so enjoyable, but I really love his relationship with Aunt May. She's under a lot of stress with the typical loss of Uncle Ben and worrying about Peter. It's just super interesting seeing the toll it takes on her and how she deals with it. She has my favorite issue of the series so far, where she goes to therapy in issue 45. I just love seeing her work through her emotions as she tries to rationalize why she worries about Peter even though she doesn't know that he's Spider-Man. It's just like she has a gut feeling about it. Knowing Peter's fate at the end of this series just makes her worrying hit so much. The villains, they're interesting. Some of them really don't work for me. Like Kraven, Venom, Carnage, and Lizard looks kinda weird. He looks like an iguana. But I absolutely love Ultimate Green Goblin. He's such an unhinged menace, and I love it. His hulking, fire-wielding form is so intimidating, and it genuinely makes me fear for Peter's life whenever they clash. Ultimate Green Goblin used to terrorize me in the old Ultimate Spider-Man game when I was a kid. Peter's voice actor in that game, Sean Marquette, is who I hear for Peter when I read this book, and it just adds to the fun of it. Some of the dialogue in this book can be kinda dated and can be long-winded and not very interesting at times, but it works overall. I really love how Spider-Man's drawn in costume. It feels so nostalgic, but how the non-costume characters are drawn, I had to get used to that. The art style is fine, more cartoony, but the faces that they make can get kinda weird. They look like weird plastic people sometimes. But overall, I love it, and I'm binging through it to get to this giant omnibus of Ultimate Miles Morales. This is that thick boy right here. Next up, we got Wolverine's Revenge. This is a 5-issue miniseries with only 1 issue coming out at the time of recording. We got Jonathan Hickman on the writing side of things, whose work I've really come to like in the short time I've been reading comics. I know he's goated, so it's like duh. And we got Greg Capullo on the art. I'm not too familiar with his work so far, but I love his art. He delivers that classic Crimson Chin Wolverine, and it looks so good. But besides loving the art on this, to my surprise, it was kind of a lackluster, disappointing start. Hold your horses. I'm still very much interested in this, but walk with me. The whole first issue is about setting up Wolverine to get his revenge, the ultimate get back, but the setup is kinda weak. It really just wasn't that convincing on how the events played out for me. I was left by the end of the issue just like,
okay.
But hey, I'm along for the ride. The art is top notch and has this gritty classic feel to it, and I really enjoy Hickman's work, so I'm down to see how it plays out. Next up, we got Batman and Superman World's Finest. Dog, I absolutely love this comic. It's written by Mark Waid with Dan Mora on the art. I'm not going to go into too much detail because I want to make a whole video about it because I love it that much. But it's just so fun seeing Batman and Superman interact like this. Polar opposites, having their worlds collide. Just really good friends, bringing out the best in each other. Uplifting one another where the other falls short, combining their strengths and weaknesses to create the perfect duo. It's just so beautiful, man. I love seeing the deep care that they have for each other. You really feel it in this book. It's so heartwarming. It's just an overall good time seeing these two and their cast of characters get up to shenanigans. I can't stress enough on how much I love it. And man, the art. The fucking art, man. Dan Mora is an absolute magician with the pen. His art is just so clean. In the short time I've been reading comics, he's easily become one of my favorite comic book artists. He just makes every character that he draws look so hard-bodied. There's about 25 issues out, and I'm only on issue 6. I took a break because I'm reading a lot of other stuff, and because I was trying to track down some physical issues because I absolutely need this comic in hand when I'm reading it. The art is just that good. My favorite issues so far are either between the first and the fifth one. They're just so fire, man. If you haven't read it yet, please go track it down because it's an absolute blast. I can't wait to pick it back up. Next up, we got New X-Men. Minus Ultimate X-Men because I don't think I should look at that as a good representation of the X-Men. This is my first official X-Men comic with the mutant team. I say official because I was reading Ultimate X-Men 2024, which I was enjoying a lot, but I just put it down to let the issues build, but I'll be back to it. But it's not really about the X-Men team that people know and love. So New X-Men has been hitting pretty hard so far. It's opened my eyes to a lot of the X-Men lore that I didn't know ran so deep. Like, holy hell. There's a lot of aliens that they deal with. I knew that they had some ties by hearing it in passing and watching the X-Men 97 revival show, but man, they got a whole deep running lore with them that I wasn't hip to. So that's gonna be pretty fun unraveling that as I go back and read the older stuff. I started New X-Men and just didn't go back and start from the beginning and read the older stuff because one, that's gonna be a pretty hefty task to go back and get through all that. And I'm currently reading the entirety of Ultimate Spider-Man, so one thing at a time. And two, I was just on a crazy high after X-Men 97 and Deadpool and Wolverine dropped, so I was feeding for some new X-Men stuff. So while reading some old Wolverine comics, I heard that New X-Men was a worthwhile, pretty easy to get into entry point. Yes, some stuff is a little confusing and references stuff from the past, but it's not too bad. I'm still enjoying it without knowing everything. But it's kind of funny because I picked this up shortly after Deadpool and Wolverine dropped, which features Cassandra Nova, Charles Xavier's Chrome Dome twin, and surprise, surprise, the first arc in New X-Men is her first comic book appearance. And it features something that inspired some of the events in the X-Men 97 revival show. I just thought that was a funny coincidence. I'm on issue 14 out of 43, pretty early on, but I'm still loving it so far. It's written by Grant Morrison, which I haven't gotten to experience a lot of his work yet, but he's regarded as a goated writer, so it's no surprise that I'm enjoying the writing. But I'm really liking the character interactions. I've really come to love seeing their trials and tribulations and treating each other like family. It's cool seeing more of Cyclops because X-Men 97 made me hip to how much of a dog he is. And the trend continues in New X-Men. My favorite moment in the series so far is with him. Without spoiling too much, he's forced to mercy kill a dying mutant. I just didn't know he was capable of things like that. But the character that I really love so far in this is Beast. I've always found his pompous, smarty pants attitude really fun, but in this, he's like having a second mutation that's making him go from a humanoid beast to a more cat-like one. He struggles with this new transformation and he's in a very vulnerable state mentally, and he's exploited because of it. But hey, to me, he looks cool as hell. His character so far is just really well done, and it makes me excited to learn more about comic book Beast. Also, this is my first time learning about Zorn. He has such a cool design, and the little that's been shown of him is pretty interesting so far. I really want to learn more about him. Now I gotta talk about Frank Quitely's art. It's really unique, and I mean that in a good way. For the most part, I think it looks great. Action looks dynamic, character power usage is a treat to see, their outfits are fresh as hell, but the faces, man, some of them have me crying. Some of them are more fitting than others. Like Wolverine in this art style, he looks pretty badass. Cyclops looks like his face was chiseled by a Roman sculptor. But Jean be looking real strong in the face sometimes. It's not every time, but sometimes Frank Quitely has her looking crazy. I don't know what it is, but it's so funny. My favorite issue so far is probably the second one. A lot of stuff goes down, but overall, it's been a pretty enjoyable read. I took a little break from it because like I said, I'm binging Ultimate Spider-Man, but I'll be back to it. Last, but certainly not least, is Aliens vs. the Avengers. This is another Jonathan Hickman story with Esad Ribic on the art. Being on an alien high after Alien Romulus, this came to scratch that itch. And that itch is thoroughly scratched. I didn't know what to expect from this beyond the Aliens vs. the Avengers, but I'm loving this story so much. I'm strapped in and ready for the ride. Without getting into major spoilers, I love the world building in it so much. Black Panther investigating an alien disturbance in deep space, looking cool as hell with his Wakandan troops, that threat spiraling as they wreak havoc on Earth, and the story jumping years ahead as the Earth becomes a desolate wasteland with only a handful of heroes surviving the alien onslaught. It's just so cool seeing the Marvel heroes dealing with the xenomorphs. I'm so glad that I got Aliens vs. the Avengers physically. because I love the art so much. It's so clean, but it has this grimness to it in the colors that fits the hopeless narrative so well. I love the ending to the first issue so much. It's just a really fun cliffhanger that I did not see coming. But I do plan to make a whole video about it when it wraps all the way up. It's only going to be 4 issues, but it's releasing monthly, so we got a little bit of time before then. Before I wrap this up though, go check out the TikTok where I post clips from this channel, but I also post whenever I get a comic physically, which will more than likely show up on a comic catch-up. I got a whole backlog of stuff, but I'm currently binging Ultimate Spider-Man, so I don't know when the next comic catch-up will be. But we got Immortal Iron Fist, Batman Dark Victory, She-Hulk, Superman Red and Blue, Predator vs. Black Panther, and that giant omnibus of Ultimate Miles Morales. And that's just the physical stuff. We got a bunch of stuff for Marvel Unlimited and a bunch of stuff that I've been reading online that I just haven't finished yet. Like New X-Men, Immortal Hulk, Immortal Thor, Hawkeye My Life as a Living Weapon, World's Finest, etc. So we got a lot to cover, with some of those being made into their own videos. But I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts on any of the comics that I went over in the comments. And drop any recommendations down below so I can add them to my already long backlog. Don't forget to drop a like and subscribe for more future bangers, but that's pretty much it. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Twos.